was Ron DeSantis continuing to try and make Florida the best state in the union. He said, "We've previously enacted requirements to teach students about the evils of communism. Now we have new history of communism standards adopted so that our students will learn the brutal truth about Marxism-Leninism." And he's quote treating Anastasios Komodos, Florida Commissioner of Education, who said, "The State Board of Education adopted the new history of communism standards, strengthening Florida's already high-quality social studies standards. The new history of communism standards will ensure students learn the truth about how communist regimes suppress freedoms, abuse power, and inflict widespread suffering. I am proud of this work and what it means for Florida's future." And this Department of Education little brief here says, "Today, the State Board of Education approved the new history of communism standards, marking a significant step to strengthen the already high-quality social studies standards provided to students. The standards were developed by Florida educators and content experts and will be implemented beginning in the 2026 to 2027 school year. With the adoption of the history of communism standards, Florida is leading the nation by equipping students with a truthful, in-depth understanding of how communist ideologies suppress individual freedoms, abuse power, and inflict widespread suffering. With the resurgence of communist ideologies across the United States and throughout the world, it is more important than ever for students to understand the catastrophic failures and human suffering caused by communist regimes," said Commissioner of Education Anastasios Komodos. "Florida's new history of communism standards will ensure that students learn the truth about the brutal realities of life under communism and gain a deeper appreciation for the blessings of liberty that define our nation. By adopting the history of communism standards, we are equipping Florida students with an honest and rigorous understanding of how communist regimes exploited authority to erode freedoms and inflict generational harm," said Dr. Grazie Pozo Christie, State Board of Education member. "The new standards will help our youth become better informed citizens, prepared to safeguard our constitutional republic for future generations. Governor Ron DeSantis recognized the need for Floridians, especially students, to learn about the dangers of communism and honor the 100 million individuals who lost their lives because of communist rule. In 2022, he signed House Bill 395 into law establishing Victims of Communism Day. The bill requires schools to provide at least 45 minutes of instruction on Victims of Communism Day, including teaching about communist regimes and how victims suffered under their rule, through poverty, starvation, migration, systemic lethal violence, and the suppression of speech and religion. In 2024, Governor DeSantis deepened this commitment by signing Senate Bill 1264 into law, expanding the Victims of Communism requirement to include comprehensive instructional of the full history and global impact of communism. I'm fucking based Lily Tang in the comments here. Surprised to hear about the 100 million in this stuff. Yeah, I'm surprised too. And also, it really is a, no pun intended, red flag when people want to praise communism but decry fascist regimes. Like, they are not exactly the same, but they are quite fucking similar. And it's also crazy that I've had people, like when I tweeted out the White House doing a anti-communism thing, there are people that are just like, what year is Kirsche living in? Communism's not a danger. And it's like, you can lie to people all you want, man, but like, we have fucking eyes, and more people are noticing that the Emperor's Boopus is out at this point. A Leaf, thank you for the Canadians. You heard non-stop about the horrors of Hitler in school, but had to learn from your family about what was done to us during the Holodomor. F commies. Yep, it is a little wild how little instruction I received about communist nations in school. And yet we had like many years of, as I jokingly called it, like Holocaust education. It just seemed like that's all you learned about. You didn't learn about anything else in World War II. And even taking German as a language course, they go over that again. And it's like, yes, it was horrible. Yes, it was atrocious. I don't know about the numbers, but yeah, it was bad. I was like, wait, maybe we could learn some other things in addition to this, though. Like, other bad things happened, right? Learned about McCarthyism and how he was a bad guy. Imagine. Maybe that's why American education is not that good. There are more things to learn out there. You think they should focus more about their own history, of course, without a commie lens that distorts historical facts to create propaganda. In order to do that, all of the communist and Marxist teachers would need to be fired. Like, there needs to be a gutting of the institutions and then hiring teachers that actually want to teach without a communist lens. What's crazy to think about for you is when you're in school, they refuse to teach you anything past the Civil War, and students that asked about it would actually get in trouble. That's even weirder. What the hell? You can't recover the country without getting the Marxists out of the institutions. Yes, true and real. Kirsche run for president? No. I would like to provide support for people I agree with. I would not like to run for office myself. I can't be an anime woman doing streams and also a politician fighting weirdos. But DeSantis here with more doing things. Ron DeSantis has dropped a bombshell demanding the complete elimination of property taxes in the US. Ron stated it's almost like they have to pay rent to the government just to enjoy their property. That's wrong. We need to do something about it. And I find this really interesting because once again, people in New Hampshire on Twitter had been talking about trying to get New Hampshire to drop property taxes. And it's like, I don't know enough about how you would end up paying for things if you have literally zero tax revenue that I can think of. Like, New Hampshire has a luxury tax, which makes sense. Luxury taxes are on things like owning multiple homes, having like a yacht, things like that. There's I think like an excise tax on vehicles. I don't know how much that is, but I have no idea how much tax income you would make. So I don't know how you would fund things if you get rid of like the majority of taxes. But New Hampshire would have to switch to a sales tax, which would be okay. I would not be okay with that. Do not fucking put sales tax back in here, you whore. You don't care about prop taxes. The boomers want to replace them by looting Gen Z and the millennials more. Kirsche could address the nation on live TV by having them roll in one of the old TVs that the schools have on stage. True!
From the property tax situation. It's very important given how that's pinched so many homeowners, particularly our senior citizens who have their homes paid off and they bought it 30 years ago for a certain amount. Now they're being told it's worth so much more and they have to pony up more and more money. It's almost like they have to pay rent to the government just to be able to enjoy their property. And that's wrong. And we need to do something about it.
And it's like, I agree. If I could pay less taxes, that'd be great. Any kind of tax abolishment, hell fucking yeah. But I also have to think realistically where would funding come from if like literally no taxes, right? Florida has a 7.5% sales tax. He's not asking for just Florida. He's saying he wants a complete elimination of property tax in the US. He wants it obliterated everywhere, which like based, but also where would tax funding come from for things like garbage and roads and stuff? As sales tax is the only way to constrain government spending. The more they tax, the less people spend. It's the only way to close the loop. Prop tax, they keep jacking it up due to the SAUs, and we have no say. I don't think New Hampshire would ever actually institute a sales tax. I know there have been people trying. Back when I was a child, there was a period of time, because if you live in Massachusetts, you obviously jump to the border to tax-free shopping in New Hampshire, right? Like that's just what you did. But there was a period of time where if you went to New Hampshire for shopping, the cashiers were supposed to ask you, some didn't, but the cashiers were supposed to ask you for your zip code. And if you had a Massachusetts zip code and you were buying things in New Hampshire, they would charge you Massachusetts state sales tax on New Hampshire purchases. And this didn't last very long, mind you, because pretty much everybody everywhere revolted against how that's fucked up. So it didn't last very long, but they did try to do it at one point. And I just think that the majority of people in New Hampshire, even with all of the like blue-haired Massachusetts transplants trying to escape Taxachusetts, I don't think there are enough of those to force a sales tax on New Hampshire. You think eliminating it entirely might be too much? BlackRock and the light would go ape, grabbing everything up. Now, no property taxes on primary residences and family-owned businesses and farms. I think before you institute no more property taxes, I don't remember which politician or where they were talking about it, but there was some sort of like bill being pushed forward to like prevent private equity firms from buying single-family homes. And I think that something like that would genuinely need to be done if you wanted to erase property taxes, because again, like you said, those equity firms in places like BlackRock could just buy everything up and have even less of a cost on it. With no taxes, would you also have privately owned police, army? Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, right? Like I don't know how much. Like I'm thinking about New Hampshire as like the state with pretty much the least amount of taxes in the country, right? If you want like the best tax area, you go to New Hampshire. And they have, again, off the top of my head, so I could be missing or forgetting, but they have sales tax only on food. They have luxury tax. They have property tax right now, but if they abolish it, you have the food tax, you have the luxury tax, and you have excise tax. I don't know how much money per year those three things make, so maybe with a state as small as New Hampshire, they could fund all of the public services based off of just those. A Propublica analysis revealed a stark pattern across the Deep South, where about 200 majority black public school districts educate 1.3 million students. Alongside those districts are private academies filled with almost entirely white students. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. That's interesting. The story of one Mississippi county shows how private schools are exacerbating segregation. It's also an interesting way to phrase it. The scoreboard glowed with the promise of another Friday night football game in Liberty, Mississippi, a small town near the Louisiana border. The Trojans in black and gold sprinted onto the field to hollers from friends and family who filled barely half the bleachers. The fans were almost all black, as is the student body at the county's lone public high school. Scanning the field and the stands would give you little indication that more than half the country's residents were white. Why is black capitalized and white not capitalized? You know, the red flags. In some swaths of the South, a big event like high school football unites people, but not in Amity County. Just beyond the Trojan scoreboard, past a stand of trees, another scoreboard lit up. At Amity School Center, a small Christian private school, cars and pickup trucks crammed every inch of space on the front lawn and in its parking lots. A charter bus for the visiting team, another private school, rumbled near the entrance to the field. A good 500 people, nearly all of them white, filled the bleachers and flowed across the hill overlooking the field. They cheered from lawn chairs and waggled cowbells as cheerleaders in red and white uniforms performed a daring pyramid routine. A child waved a handmade white poster that read, "Go Rebels." Amity School Center, like many private schools across the Deep South, opened during desegregation to serve families fleeing the arrival of black children at the once all-white public schools. I don't think this has anything to do with the current stock of children in either of the schools. That is wild. That is a wild thing to put in this article. Propublica has been examining how these schools, called segregation academies, often continue to act as divisive forces in their communities even now, 5 decades later. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you send your child to private school, you have to pay that private school out of pocket. The public schools are funded by your tax dollars, whereas the private schools, you have to pay tuition to send your child there. So why exactly would they be called segregation academies if the parents are specifically paying for their children to go there? Doesn't really make sense to me to call them that. In Amity County, about 900 children attend the local public schools, which, as of 2021, were 16% white. More than 600 children attend 2 private schools, which were 96%. So they're not all white, are they? They're not all white if they're 96% white. This is like making a mountain out of a molehill. Other, mostly white students go to a larger segregation academy in a neighboring county. It's staggering, said Warren Eister, principal of Amity County High, until this school year. It does create a divide. A divide in income because people who can afford to send their children to a private school do so? Like, that even happened in my literal 99% white, 1% Asian area. The people that could afford to send their kids to the local private academies instead of sending them to the fucking high school, man. The difference between those figures, 80 percentage points, is one way to understand the segregating effect of private schools. It shows how much more racially isolated students are when they attend these schools. What do you mean by racially isolated? That's kind of a weird thing to say. They're racially isolated? I don't really like that commie gobbledygook, man. Considerable research has examined public school segregation. Academics have found that everything from school attendance zones to the presence of charter schools can worsen segregation in the local public schools. When was this? December 19th, 2024. Why did Propublica on November 10th, 2025 repost an article from 2024? I hate this. I hate this so much. And I'm going to rant about this when we finish this article. I'm going to rant about this when I finish. But like, that's still crazy that this was 2024 and it feels like I'm reading something from like 70 years ago. Like what? But the ways in which private schools exacerbate segregation are tough to measure. Unlike their public brethren, they don't have to release much information about themselves. That means few people on the outside know many details about these schools, including the racial makeup of their student bodies. At a time when legislatures across the South are rapidly expanding voucher-style programs that will send private schools hundreds of millions more taxpayer dollars. That isn't the point of private schools that they aren't taxpayer funded? I'm a little confused. Very white private schools in majority black districts. Propublica looked at majority black public school districts where private schools also operated. A wide swath of districts across the South exhibited the same pattern. Student populations in private schools are far whiter than in the surrounding public schools. They're talking about majority black areas. No difference in share of public and private school students who are white. 75% points whiter in private schools, 75% points less white. This seems like a weird fucking bar. Why does it go from 75 to 75? What the... Very white private schools in majority black districts. Propublica looked at majority black public school districts where private schools also operated. A wide swath of districts across the South exhibited the same pattern. Student populations in private schools are far whiter than in the surrounding public schools. A new Propublica analysis shows the extent to which private schools segregate students. We dug into decades of private and public school data kept by the U.S. Department of Education, including a survey of the nation's private schools conducted every other year by its National Center for Education Statistics. Outside of academia, few people know about this data. The surveys are imperfect measures. Schools self-report their information, and about 1 in 4 didn't respond to the most recent round in 2021. But the surveys are the only national measure of this kind. Propublica used them to determine how often students attended schools with peers of the same race in tens of thousands of private schools nationwide, and compared that to public schools. Can I just, ask why? Again, this is more of the parents can afford to send their children to a private school, and so they do, because typically, not always, but typically, the private school is better than the public school. So, why are you doing, nationwide race checks on the school? That just seems like a really weird thing to do. A stark pattern emerged across states in the Deep South: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, where about 200 majority black school districts educate 1.3 million students. Alongside those districts, a separate web of schools operates. Private academies filled with almost entirely white students. Across the majority black districts in those states, private schools are 72% white, and public schools are 19% white. That just means, there's a disparity in people who can afford to send their kids to private school, right? Some parents will even go into debt if they perceive that they're sending their child to a better school. How dare they offer their services to too many white... I don't understand why this is phrased as a problem. It doesn't make sense. Many of those districts are home to segregation academies. I think it's really gross that they're calling them that, which siphon off large numbers of white students. What do you mean by siphon off? This is reading many of those districts are home to segregation academies which siphon off large numbers of white students makes me think of the gentrification stuff, where it's if white people move in, it's gentrification and that's racist, but if white people move out, it's white flight and that's also racist. That's just how it reads. In many areas, particularly rural ones, these academies are the reason that public school districts scarcely resemble their communities, and the reason that public schools are more black than the population of children in the surrounding county. What? Look at them in the stands. They're all white. How dare they? Which country has the largest county? Amity. Along the 2-lane country roads through Amity County, fear still mingles with the red clay. Civil rights violence scarred the place just a few generations ago. At least 14 lynchings and other terrifying acts of racist violence took place here, including one of the nation's most infamous unsolved civil rights murders. In neighboring Pike County, the town of Macomb became known as the bombing capital of the world for its violent resistance to civil rights. You can't forget things like that, said Jackie Robinson, chair of the Amity County Democratic Committee. A black woman, she remembers going to the neighborhood store with her grandmother and being called a racial slur. Her mother told stories of crosses burning. Robinson said she had encountered black residents who won't push campaign signs for black candidates in their yards. They fear that white residents who own most of the local businesses might shut them out if they do. It looks like a cowboy town. That's kind of a cute downtown area. White adults outnumber black ones, and white elected officials control the school district that educates mostly black children. If the area is majority black, and the public schools are majority black, and the minority white people send their kids to a private school, what is, I don't understand the issue, actually. Like, they're just sending their kids to a different school. Yeah, it'd be great if you had the school choice vouchers. That'd be great. We should have that pretty much everywhere. Only one school trustee is black, and she sent her children to the local public schools, but few, if any, of the white trustees did. This also kind of reminds me of that thing recently where they were talking about, like, the gerrymandering of districts, and how there's a lot of districts that are, like, oddly, like, banana snake shaped and shit, to try and get as many black voters as possible inside a district to promote black candidates specifically. And I was like, that's interesting. Fucking Jerry is back at it, fucking Jerry!
All right, let's settle down, settle down.
One longtime white board member whose children attended Amity School Center has had his Facebook profile picture a photo of the private school's football team. Propublica reached out to all of the school board members multiple times, but none responded. I mean, why would they respond to a journalist who's writing something like this? I'm going to be real with you. The school board hired a superintendent who is white. It selected high school and middle school principals who are white, and all of the people collecting $7 cash from each spectator at the football game appeared to be white. This is so fucking weird to read. Like, oh my god, white ticket takers! Oh my god, how dare the white people be ticket takers! Is this that Scottish Muslim guy angry that Scotland is white? This is so fucking weird! Why is it a problem when there's white people existing? Like, nobody's even doing anything! They just exist! A private school has no obligation to give info for this person's smear campaign? This is fucking wild! This entire article is just like, how dare those white people do white people things. It's like, if I was reading an article that was just like, how dare those black people do black people things, it would sound just as fucking insane. It's like, but why is it so widespread to be okay to just like be mad at white people existing? Janice Jackson Lyons, a black woman, ran for a school board seat in 2020 against the white incumbent with the private school Facebook photo. She described her campaign message as, "I'm reaching for all children. I'd love to see all the kids go to school together because all the kids in Amity County are going to compete for jobs with people from all over the world." She lost by 60 votes. Isn't this just saying that she wants to get rid of the private school entirely? Like, instead of wanting to get rid of the private school, why not run on a platform of school choice vouchers so that all the parents can choose where they send their child? That would be better for the children. It would be better for the parents. It would not be better for the schools because then they have to actually compete for the government funding. But that's fine because you don't want the schools to get complacent with their funding. Warren Griffin, who volunteers with Amity County High School's football team, ran for a board seat in November. He and another black resident, an educator in a neighboring school district, both lost to white candidates. Again, it's really crazy that they capitalize black and lowercase white, and they're trying to make, like, losing seats a racial issue. There are too many whites running kids they don't know nothing about. Couldn't you easily make this as, like, you have an education board for the public schools and you have an education board for the private schools? Like, I would say, why not make it like there's a certain percentage of people on the education board based on how many people are in the private versus public schools as well? But then you could get people in the public schools voting on things that are bad for the private school kids, and, you know, I don't know. That was a quote? Yeah, that was a quote from an educator. There are too many whites running kids they don't know nothing about. And they see race relations in terms of Marxist class warfare. I feel like I am reading something that isn't real. Like, this is just mind-boggling to me. Why not work with the private school to make the other schools better? That's what the school vouchers would do. If every parent got the school voucher to send their kid where they wanted to, the schools would have to actually compete for the children to get the funding. These people are NPCs for sure. Neocultural Marxism shifted from class-based warfare to race-based warfare. I think they have it on all sides. I think there is the class-based, I think there is the race-based, and I think there's the sex-based as well. They are among the black residents who wonder, why do the white people who never sent their kids to the public schools keep challenging black candidates who have. Many black residents figure it comes down to control over property tax rates, district spending contracts, and hiring. Because the school board isn't just for the public schools, it's for the whole area. What do you mean? What do you mean? And also, yeah, what, like, if people were running to allocate more funds, which would raise my property taxes, I would also not want that. I call that a plantation-style school, said local resident Betty Patterson, a black woman who served on the school board years ago. If you have a school board that has a say in like what's going on in all the schools in the district, which include the private schools, and if you have people that want to increase the property taxes in order to get more funding into the public schools because you think that funding is simply the only reason why the private schools do better, if those people got in to raise the property taxes, first of all, they're going to price out a lot of the poorer families who live in that area, regardless of their race. And the people that don't want to pay higher property taxes but can afford to are going to move the fuck out. And you're going to end up in a catch-22 where your schools get worse and worse. I don't understand what I'm reading or why this has to do with race. Amity County has one of the lowest property tax rates for funding schools in Mississippi. And when the board consolidated schools in 2010, it shuttered the elementary school in Gloucester, a mostly black town in the county, and moved all students to Liberty, a mostly white one. The only school left in Gloucester is a Head Start for preschoolers. Do we have a story on why it's shuttered? Filed July 28, 2010, United States District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi. Defendant Amity County School District by its council moves the court to modify the district's existing desegregation plan by closing Gloucester Elementary School, which serves students in grades K through 8 who reside in the Gloucester Elementary Attendance Zone, and beginning with the school year 2010-11, reassigning Gloucester students in grades K through 6 to attend Liberty Elementary School and Gloucester students in grades 7 to 8 and to attend Amity County High School. This modification will result in all students in grades K through 6 in the district attending Liberty Elementary School and all students in grades 7 to 12 in the district attending Amity County High School, thereby improving desegregation in the district. Let me get this straight. There was a majority black school in a majority black town that would have had their own board of education to allocate what happens at this majority black school in the majority black town. But the Amity County, someone in Amity County, the Amity County School District, wanted to modify desegregation policy by closing the majority black school in the majority black district that the majority black people would have had more control over to move all of those majority black children to a majority white area under the control of majority white property taxes. That seems like you made it worse for the majority black people and removed some of their agency and control over their children's education. What the fuck are you doing? I don't understand. The white school is better. Would it be though? Would it be better to take more control away from the parents who are sending their children to the Gloucester schools? You will desegregate, it's not optional. This just seems really fucking goofy to me. Commies don't care about people. I'm shocked that commies don't actually care about people. And like they try framing this. Oh, that's so sad that the school closed down, but then you find out it was the race commies that fucking did it. That's all I want. What? Superintendent Don Cuevas wouldn't comment on the racial dynamic of the board. We have a good school system, he said. We have a safe school system. Everybody's treated equal. Several Amity public school teachers and parents described watching the PTA, the booster club, and a parent liaison position disappear. They said they don't feel their input is welcome. But Cuevas said the district wants to be selective about when it asks for money from its families, many of whom have very low incomes when the district doesn't need it. And as I've said before, just throwing more money at the problem does not fix problem. PTA should exist. I don't know why PTA position would disappear. I don't really know what's going on with that. Sell the solution, create the problem. Financially, we're set, Cuevas said. We handle money very well. He pointed to renovations at the elementary school, including improvements to the parking lot and plumbing, a new iron fence around the entire property, and a guard shack. The superintendent said it was to ensure safety and order, but Griffin said the fence felt like a prison wall. Again, my grandparents lived in like a 99% white, 1% Asian area. The high school I went to did not have any minorities. It was only white people. I think maybe in high school we had like one cross-dressing black guy, that was there for like half the year, but then left. He like played lacrosse or some shit. I don't know. But like, our elementary school also had a fence. You know why elementary schools put up fences? To make sure children don't go run off and get lost in the woods or hit by a car, because they're very young children. And also, in case some random adults that nobody knows decide to wander onto the premises, there is a fence between random adult and the children. What the fuck are you comparing it to a prison wall for? I'm losing my goddamn mind. Multiple black educators told ProPublica that the district had passed over qualified black teachers with local roots for jobs and promotions. I'm gonna fucking citation needed here on this, considering how much DEI nonsense I read, and considering how many teachers are commies. Jeffrey Gibson, who grew up in Gloucester, was a PE teacher and Amity County High School's head football and a track coach last year when he said he applied for 2 open administrative positions. Given he had coached multiple state championship teams, received his administrator license, and worked as a lead teacher, he figured he'd be a strong candidate. I know the kids, Gibson said. I can motivate them. I can get them to do what I ask. I can get them to reach their full potential. I'm from there. But he said the district didn't respond to his application, so he took a job as the athletic director of a larger district. Were they positions that required qualifications he didn't have? Yeah, it doesn't tell you. And if he was like PE and track and he wanted administrator positions, he said he received his administrator license. I don't know. I don't know what qualifications they need, because they don't explain what the positions were. ProPublica identified 155 counties across the Deep South with private schools that likely opened as segregation academies. There's that fucking terminology again. Roughly 36 of those schools are in Mississippi. One in Amity County has never, over nearly 30 years of responding to a federal survey, reported enrolling more than 1 black student at a time. The other, Amity School Center, began reporting enrollment of black students in the past decade, but not enough to come close to reflecting the population of the children in Amity County, where almost half of the school-age kids are black. In the 2021 federal survey, Amity School Center reported student enrollment was 3.5% black, and it employs no black teachers. Again, this is not a racial issue. You pay more money to send your kids to the private schools. This is like a class thing which could be easily solved by school choice vouchers. But then the teachers unions couldn't grift. When asked if his school still creates divisions in the community, ACS's head of school, Jay Watts, said, "No, I haven't seen it here. The school has a policy that says it doesn't discriminate based on race." The nonprofit Christian Academy, home of the Rebels, opened hastily in 1970 in the wake of court-ordered all-out racial desegregation of the Amity County schools, a local Enterprise Journal story said a few months beforehand. Back then, A.R. Lee Jr., a doctor and congressional candidate from Liberty, was president of the nonprofit Amity School Court. As violence erupted in other southern towns, Lee told a Mississippi newspaper reporter, "The fact that we have a private school here is the reason everything is calm. If we didn't have it, it wouldn't be calm in Amity County." How are they trying to equate things in 1970 to the students going to the schools now? It's not like you inherit a seat at a school. Like, what am I reading? In the front office of the modest one-story school, which educates just over 300 students across all grade levels, a Confederate flag with ASC emblazoned in the center is tacked to a cabinet. I'm gonna need a picture, man, because this is just getting goofier the more I read. You're telling me that in the year of our Lord 2024, there's a school district that has a prominently displayed Confederate flag? There ain't no way I believe that shit. Down a hallway, Watts sat at a desk beneath an impressive deer mount, a wooden paddle perched against the office's doorframe. He welcomed questions from a reporter who showed up without an appointment. That's where he fucked up. Do they still paddle students in 2024? Is that something I feel like you could catch a lawsuit from doing that, man. The school district will rise again. Oh my God. Watts seemed eager to share what his school offers, a Christian-based education that eschews government interference. "We're charged with educating academically, physically, spiritually, emotionally," Watts said. "I'm not sure that's the mission of the public schools. They're there to educate academically. I think our mission here is broader." This guy literally said, yeah. We don't teach that commie gobbledygook in these parts. Because ASC is private, it can operate without the government dictating whether teachers can lead prayer, what tests they administer, and whether or not that paddle gets used. I stand corrected. I had no idea private schools could do that. I had no idea that getting a paddle in was something that you could do in current year. When my dad was in school, he got hit with yardsticks. That was the thing back then.
Oh, you better believe that's a paddling.
Watt said many of its families think the broader culture is changing in ways they don't agree with. We don't have to let a girl go to the boys' bathroom or a boy go to the girls' bathroom, he said. Oh, common sense. Josh Bass, the school's athletic director and basketball coach, worked at public schools earlier in his career, then came to ASC from a larger academy in neighboring Pike County. He said he and his wife enrolled their 3 children at ASC primarily due to their Christian faith. If it's not biblical leadership, then I don't want it for my child. He insisted that racial segregation isn't the school's goal today. That might have been at one time 100 years ago, and some people hang on to that, Bass said. We all want to have an opportunity to go to these schools and be a part of what we're trying to lead them to be. That's kind of nuts. That's kind of, you know, I've always said that, like, I don't think I am really smart enough to do homeschooling on my own. If I lived in an area that had like homeschooling co-op, I might consider that because it would make the most sense. However, if that wasn't possible, I would want my child to go to like a private Catholic or private Christian academy. I might not go to church any longer. I might not necessarily believe in the faith any longer. But I feel like those schools typically offer a higher echelon of education than just sending your kid to the public school sloppa. Like, I turned out okay, but not because of the public school sloppa. The men also recognize that even though ASC's tuition is relatively low compared to many other private schools, under $6,000 a year per child, damn, that is kind of low. Disparities in resources still create barriers. The median white household income in Amity County is $54,688 compared to a $21,680 for a black household, the U.S. Census Bureau estimates. So what you're pointing out here is that since the white households have a higher median income, they're paying for the majority of the public schools that they're paying for the majority of the public schools that are majority black while also paying private school tuition for their children. And you were saying earlier that more money is needed. So you want more subsidy? I'm confused. ASC has received $459,000 in donations over the past 3 years through a state tax credit program for certain educational charities, including private schools. But Watt said the school still lacks money to offer financial aid. Why would they offer financial aid? They're not a college. I'm a little confused. Across the tree line at the public schools district office, Cuevas said in terse tones that he had no comment about anything related to the private schools or the parents who choose them. He knew nothing about what ASC offers and therefore could not and would not compare the public schools to it. I don't know why they said in terse tones, because his response is relatively professional in that case. I don't even know those answers, Cuevas said. I don't know anything about the private schools. I don't ask. It's not his job. Why would he? He said he didn't go out into the community to promote the schools he leads. Instead, he opened the school's doors and tried to educate whoever walked in. He's unclear why so many white students don't come. We don't know why. We offer a good education. Like I said, a very professional response. But, you know, he could communicate with the private school. He could ask them, like, hey, how do I make my public school a bit more efficient? He could ask them, right? Gibson, the public school's former football coach, turned his pickup truck onto ASC's jam-packed campus and found a slip of empty grass on the lawn where he could park amid the football crowd. He had never set foot on this property, even though he had worked and attended the nearby public schools. Halftime approached as he headed toward the football field. A peal of parents' yells, "Way to go, keep pushing," burst from the entrance. Once inside, Gibson scanned a sea of white people. How terrifying. Who filled the bleachers and packed together in lawn chairs, most of them strangers to him, except for a few who worked at the public school district. The public schools pay more and offer better benefits. Gibson had come to see one of his favorite players, a gifted senior who was on his team last year, and who was now the only black player he saw on ASC's team. It wasn't hard to find the teen's father. Nobody said anything unfriendly to him, but Gibson felt hundreds of eyes watching as he strolled over to the man who stood front and center against the fence. I feel like I'm reading some sort of science fiction novel written by a woman. White people could be here. White people could be anywhere. With a car, you can go anywhere you want. Gibson imagined, you mean? Yeah, like, this is some main character energy. Why would anyone be paying attention to you walking over to a father who has a son in the game? That's crazy. Hundreds of white people were watching me and I felt fear. True fear of white people who could get credit loans. What the fuck? The player he came to see had transferred to ASC after Gibson left the public high school. Gibson had barely said hello to the teen's father before the player scored a touchdown. A cheers cascaded from the crowd and Gibson joined them. These white people are cheering for a black teenager touching football? How horrific! This is so scary! I don't know how we let this stand for so long. It felt strange standing there with so many white people at the quote-unquote white school. Back when he was growing up, he couldn't have imagined such a thing. God, fucking, the black father paid extra money to send his black child to this school because probably this school had a better sports program offer that would do more for his son wanting to get into sports than the public school. Why is this being made into a racial thing? I don't understand, man. In college and after, while coaching in Oklahoma, Gibson made good friends who are white. This is so fucking weird. This is like, being friends with a white people isn't like a commodity. What the fuck is this? As he cheered with the crowd at ASC, he wondered how many white friends he might have made here in Amity had the local kids all gone to school together. I don't think there's a single black person who goes to like a high school football game that's like, man, if only we could get these white people out of their private school and into the public school. Just think of how many white friends everyone could have. Like, that is... You belong in a mental asylum if that is something that you think. That is not a normal human thought. Sure it is. I sell white people friends. Cheap whites near you! Cheap white hookers near you want to talk to you now. It's big I'm not racist, I have white friends energy. How could I be racist? I want to have more white people around me so that I can be friends with them. He found an empty seat in the front row of the metal bleachers and took in the manicured field before him. It was so close to the one where he'd been a student and coach, yet it felt like stepping into another world. I genuinely can't imagine the mindset a person has to have to like go into an area with majority white people and be like, wow, this is like an alternate reality.
Sorry, do you mind going back? This is first class. It's nothing personal. It's just that we're better than you.
How is it even possible for so many white people to be in one place at one time? This is nothing like my movies. Like, what the fuck? This is so weird. A whole new world. This is the weirdest article I have ever read. And I know it took like hours to go through it, but it does not feel like it took that long. White people could be here. I've never been in this neighborhood before. So this Julie person said, just got an email from the homeschool co-op secretary that another parent discovered their child with a Switch case and 5 games that doesn't belong to them, which they admitted to stealing from my house. And she'd like to know when a good time is to return it to us. My 9-year-old has been grounded for nearly a month because I thought she'd lost it somewhere being negligent, and half the games weren't hers. Secretary doesn't want to tell me what child stole it and thinks I'm being unreasonable for asking. And I've encountered this a handful of times where, as you guys know, I've been lied about quite a bunch this year. And some people who enjoy lying about me, I guess, have gone to people that I know and continued lies about me. One very interesting lie was someone came to me and they were like, hey, I was told that there are a lot of N-words in your Discord, and I can't be around that. And I was like, well, that's impossible because I have it literally auto-filtered by a bot. So whoever is telling you that is just straight up lying to you and trying to cause an issue. And I don't want to accidentally interact with this person. I don't want to accidentally promote them on my stream if they're lying about me. So I'd like to know who it is. And apparently I was unreasonable and a bad person for wanting to know that. And so I'm kind of used to this. I'm kind of used to the like, oh no, we can't give you information on people who are liars or slanderers or protecting criminals. We have to protect them. That matters more than the harm that they're doing to you. And that pisses me off, you know? That pisses me off intensely. So that's why I quote retweeted this post. We destroy anybody who manages to bypass it too. Give it up, you degenerates. Yeah, right? The safety of the anonymous liar is more important than the truth. It's pretty fucked. Julie continues, I told my husband I don't want to host anything anymore because I don't want to have a thief in my house, and he's emailed the secretary to that effect. We're the only house big enough to host a PE, the Christmas party, and cooking class. So unless they change course and tell us, that's all canceled. I'm going to find out anyway because the parent emailed the secretary about it, and the email server the co-op uses is literally a private server my husband set up that's sitting in my house downstairs, and the disclaimer says we can review it and it's not private. I think she's forgetting that. I'm so mad right now, and I've got to apologize to my child. She was the victim, and I thought she'd done something wrong. And there were a bunch of people in the comments who were like lambasting this lady, being like, I agree with you being angry, but like you shouldn't be checking the emails. Like that seems very wrong to me, and like nobody's gonna trust you after that. And it's like, excuse me, if I am hosting the email server for my co-op and I have been stolen from, and the secretary refuses to tell me who it is, so I can no longer feel safe in my own home during classes, you bet your fucking ass I'm looking at those emails. And also, it's not even a loss of trust thing, because she specifically says, the disclaimer says we can review it and it's not private. So whatever co-op shit that these people have to sign to educate their children together, they had the opportunity to read a disclaimer that told them these people have access to the emails and can read them at any time if they need to. So go fuck yourself. Stop protecting criminals. And then Julie came here with some updates. She said, after I emailed the group telling them we wouldn't be hosting anymore because of the lack of accountability, 4 families emailed me back letting me know they'd also been stolen from, and 3 of them were contacted by the secretary to have things returned. So it's not just a one-time thievery, it's a consistent pattern that has been shoved under the rug multiple times. Very interesting. Apparently, this is a pattern of behavior. Husband's going to check the server here shortly when he gets a minute to see if it's all the same kid and family, and we'll go from there. And then Julie comes with not a fun update. It was a 17-year-old, definitely old enough to know better. We're the 4th or 5th family he's stolen something worth over $150 from. My husband called his parents and spoke with the stepdad, who at first denied it. Not out of malice, but because his wife hadn't told him what her son was doing. I don't know why a man would marry a single mother, but if you marry a single mother and she doesn't let you know about the child's behavioral issues, you cannot be a father to that child, no matter how much you are trying to be. The mother is shielding him from the father giving out punishment for being a bad human being in general. The father is the one who handles punishment because the child will learn much better that way.
That's a peddling.
The boy is now banned from the co-op after a vote by the board, but his younger siblings are not, which I think is fair. To be fair, that is fair, but considering this was a pattern of behavior and the mother hid it from the father and somehow convinced the secretary to cover for the child, this is not just a single child problem, this is a family problem. I would probably be the hard ass that's just like, nah, get the whole family out, man. The most disappointing part is the mother covering for her son repeatedly instead of letting her husband parent him. The boy's biological father isn't around, and that's the only dad he's got, and she's not letting him be a dad when it's really needed. The icing on the cake is he's the only black kid, well, he's half black, in the co-op. What a disappointing play into a stereotype Sorry for the crappy update. I was like, damn. I was originally relating to the like lack of accountability and protecting people who lie and steal and do bad behavior from the first thing. But after I made my Croat retweet and then I read all the updates, I was like, holy shit, man, this was a fucking rabbit hole. This was a fucking rabbit hole, man. Not all stereotypes hold true, but stereotypes exist for a reason. Replace the secretary too. What the fuck? That's a dumb bitch secretary. I saw this video and it was horrific. I don't know who Callum Worthy is. Co-founder of 2Y app, now in the Apple App Store. I don't know, but I thought this was fucking weird and I didn't like it.
He's getting bigger. See?
Oh, honey, that's wonderful.
Kicking like crazy.
He's listening. Put your hand on your tummy and hum to him. You used to love that.
It feels like he's dancing in there.
Oh, honey.
Mom, would you tell Charlie that bedtime story you always used to tell me?
Once upon a time, there was a baby unicorn who didn't know he knew how to fly. This baby unicorn was like your mom because she didn't know that she knew how to fly, but she knew how to do all kinds of fabulous things.
Hi, Grandma.
Hey, Charlie. How was school today?
It was really fun.
I like how when this kid is 10 years old, our technology has somehow advanced so much that phones are just see-through in your hand. This makes me think of a Black Mirror episode. Because wasn't there a Black Mirror episode where, like, a wife lost her husband and she got, like, an android version of him? I, like, vaguely remember that. This shit is an actual abomination. Yeah, this is fucking creepy. Like, I can understand missing a loved one, but, like, this is kind of creepy. It's kind of weird to me.
I made this crazy shot in basketball.
I don't really care that much about that.
Imagine bringing up your dead grandma on your phone for some comfort, and you're like, Grandma, I did this crazy thing in school. And she's like, yeah, shut up, little Timmy. I don't really give a shit about what you did in school.
Bob, what about the crush?
I'm gonna stop talking.
Just tell me one thing.
Look who's gonna be a great grandmother.
Oh, Charlie.
I don't think I could deal with that, man. If I was this guy's fucking wife and he was like this attached to dead grandma, I'd be like, I don't know, dude. I was like, are you gonna prioritize dead grandma like every day now? Like, what's going, brother?
Congratulations.
She says that he's been kicking a lot though. Like, a little too much.
Hum?
Tell her to put her hand on her tummy and hum to him. You loved that.
You'd have loved this moment.
It's the same thing she told her daughter before.
You can call anytime.
Okay, Mom, I just need a quick video.
Is this like an audition or something?
No, Mom. Just 3 minutes.
You need my best side?
Can I see another one?
I can play the piano.
She's so talented.
I am. I'm your mother after all.
Keep going. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
She's stealing her soul. You know, maybe those uncontacted tribes had a point about stealing your soul, man. At 2Y, we're building a living archive of humanity, one story at a time. It all starts with the social network for avatars of the 2Y app. Try the 2Y beta on the App Store and Android coming soon.
No, I don't think I will.
Yeah, this is weird. This is weird. And I would not feel comfortable with this. Let me open up the engram of my grandfather from 1809. No thanks, when you die, you don't digitally copy you. It also kind of reminds me of Soma, where like everybody had made copies of themselves to put on the Ark. And when you're playing the main character, he has a lot of trouble accepting the fact that like, he's already not a human, so he's already a copy of whatever he was before. And then the copy of his copy that gets put on the Ark, it is him, but it's a different him. So it's not the same him that is the copy inside the robot that was originally his human form. And I feel like this will like brain break quite a lot of people in a similar manner. Soma was wild. I fucking love Soma. That is a great game. This man, Gabriel Daron, spent 9 months simulating a pregnancy, including feigned morning sickness and the wearing of a fake belly, with the intention of play acting the loss of the imaginary baby. He also joined a support group for grieving mothers who had lost actual children, seeking validation and support for his planned stillbirth. What levels of narcissism and just like evil feelings do you have to not only play pretend as a woman, but also play pretend for an entire pregnancy, planning a stillbirth? It's fucking wild to me. He even went so far as to rent a machine that simulated contractions and bought a plastic baby, which he inserted into his rectum and then gave birth to. I knew about the butt baby, but why are people like this? Women who objected to his presence in the group, women who had actually lost children, were kicked out so that this man could feel supported in his game of let's pretend. Their very real grief was considered less important than this man's sexual fantasies. An all too common occurrence in current year. To top it all off, he did all of this in the house he still shared with his unconsenting soon-to-be ex-wife and their minor children. He even roped his 7-year-old into taking maternity pictures. Gabriel, sound the trumpets. What the fuck am I reading? Mr. Daron also convinced his doctors to provide him with drugs to induce lactation. He also asked the members of an online breastfeeding group he'd joined if any of them would be willing to let him, quote-unquote, breastfeed, that is, sexually assault their babies, and attempted to donate the chemical-laced sludge he pumped out of his moobs to other mothers. I have read too many articles about men wanting to feel like a woman and so actually using a baby to latch onto their nipple to simulate breastfeeding. And it's a shame that it's more than one article. That's a real shame. Thanks, I hate it.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
These men have proven over and over again there's no aspect of women's pain that they will not twist into a prop for their sickening deviancy, from rape to oppression to sexual objectification. Even the loss of a child in the womb is fair game to them. A perverted, selfish, hypersexualized game of make-believe that must always take priority over the real pain and real needs of real women. And they have some screenshots here. Gabriel Daron, princess mom, simulated pregnancy 35 weeks. I have been wearing my empathy belly for 8 days, and my hips and ribs are feeling it. Even short walks can tire me out. Combined with mask wearing and smoke-filled California air, breathing has been a little tricky at times. I have a feeling it's not the empathy belly making it difficult. Hashtag trans sim pregnancy. Thankfully, it has literally 0 likes, so, you know, nobody was on board with this freak. This is a support for mothers, a Gabriel Daron. As I wait for the time to come, a lot of things are swimming through my mind. Since there will, he missed the word be, no baby after Saturday, see my previous post if confused, a member of this group asked if I had a close friend who would be willing to let me nurse their baby. I think if I had read this post as it had been posted, I would have just reported this guy to the police, man. I'd be like, this guy is going to hurt a child at some point, and I will not have it on my conscience that I didn't report it when I had the chance, you know? That nearly made me cry because in the absence of my own child, feeding another person's child would be a dream scenario. Of course, asking someone if I can nurse their child seems wildly inappropriate, and yet, here you are, doing it anyway! Good fucking God, bloke! If someone were to offer, however, that would be an invaluable gift. Is there a scenario where something like this could be possible? If any woman did this, immediate call to CPS. Ain't no way. Not that I like CPS. I've had to deal with them in the past because of my mother, and I think they're wildly fucking corrupt. But Lord help that child if any woman ever consented to that. Additional thought, oxytocin is an important factor in triggering letdowns, correct? With no baby crying and no latching, only pumping, should I consider oxytocin spray to give myself a better chance? I would be open to hearing the pros and cons, and if yes, start immediately or adjust DOM doses first and find a sweet spot to boost supply. Thank you again for the incredible level of support and love you have shown me. Once again, I want to remind people that he's posting this in a group for actual women who have had actual, like, miscarriages and stillborn babies. How insanely narcissistic do you have to be to go in here and expect people to fucking play game with your delusions? And then they actually do by kicking out women who are uncomfortable with it! I'm losing my mind. A breastfeeding help group on Facebook has turned off the comments to a thread about a trans woman who took drugs to stimulate milk production and pretended to give birth to a dead baby in order to live out a lactating fantasy. Women who said they were upset by this were silenced. And there's a couple of posts here. I can't read the full things, but one of them says, I am very apprehensive about posting, given the drama surrounding me both within the group and around the internet as a result of my story being broadcast. Doxing brings immense hatred and cruelty into a world where love should win. Maybe you shouldn't cosplay a woman and use miscarriages and stillborn babies as a part of your prop. Maybe you shouldn't be shoving butt babies in and pushing it out and saying that it's the same thing as a woman pregnancy. I don't know, man. It's kind of like, what? The lengths that some of these people will go to in order to try and contort themselves into a victim instead of the aggressor and abuser is just wild to me. I should be able to live my life without my reputation being brazenly tarnished, but alas, whether or not I was on this special journey, there's a large swath of people who will always hate me simply because I am transgender. No. This is an autogynephiliac. This is a man with a fetish for being seen and validated as a woman. These are the kinds of people that need to be called out because they are using a transgender identity. They're using actual dysphoric people who have a medical condition in order to force people to play with them in their fetish. These are people who are doing very bad, very nefarious things, and I am tired of it. And then there's another tweet here. It says, 37 weeks into my simulated pregnancy, still being a busy worker bee when not taking selfies. About 3 more weeks to go. This creep has reached the end of his simulated pregnancy and it was stillborn, so he has taken 2 weeks off work to process his feelings and joined a support group for mothers of stillborn children to help him grieve. Oh, and he wants to lactate and donate the milk. As a friend said, I'm sorry, but if you still support this movement, you're dumb as dog shit. There's no other way I can describe it. And there's another partial post on the side here I can read that says, this picture was taken on my last day of work on Friday. I'm taking 2 weeks off to process everything, while today marks my due date. As with most firstborns, I'll be a little late. A friend is planning to help me with labor on Saturday using an EMS unit. Once that happens, I'll finally start pumping and seeing if all this DOM I have been taking and the protocol I have been on will start paying off. I've already started reducing my estrogen and the drop in progesterone will come soon. Here's hoping for the letdown I have been going for. I do not have the words to express how just disgusting it is to be incredibly happy LARPing about having a stillborn. Why? And the people that get upset at this are the ones who got silenced in the Facebook group because, oh, you can't criticize, It might be a little delayed, but you know I'm determined. I'll look to the group for finding my sweet spot, pumping encouragement, and donation options. Do not donate moob sludge. An old acquaintance and coworker who experienced an actual stillbirth validated my experience and helped me process some feelings this week. On his advice to deal with the upcoming loss and remember my journey, I'm coming up with a name and will pursue breast milk jewelry. I think I'm skipping on the doll. I started looking into donation, but I'm worried a milk bank won't accept my milk because of the use of DOM. Anyone else experience that? Will I be limited to peer-to-peer sharing? You can't fucking torrent male breast milk, dude. What the fuck? Mr. Daron is also a Little League umpire. How fucking horrific. Gabrielle Daron has been selected to umpire the Little League Intermediate Regional Tournament in Nogales, Arizona in July 2024. So that was last year. District 45 is very proud to have Gabrielle on our umpire staff. What a great honor it is for Gabrielle to be selected to this regional tournament. You must be considered one of the best umpires in the Western region and the U.S. to get selected. She's awesome. Help us congratulate and celebrate this well-deserved honor. I wonder if they're still working for that Little League in 2025. At 38 weeks of his fake pregnancy, he posted on Twitter maternity photos with this caption: "This past weekend, my 7-year-old took pictures for a mini maternity shot. That belly doesn't even look convincing." Not only did a formerly prestigious news outlet profile favorably a self-indulgent mentally ill fetishist, but also some doctor apparently prescribed domperidone for him, and scores of women on Twitter and YouTube supported his destructive delusion, thereby becoming complicit in the abuse of his 2 young children. Of course, this freak picks the position that puts them behind unsuspecting kids. You know, I'm not entirely shocked that someone with this kind of freaky, fucked up fetish would want to work around children. It's no longer shocking or surprising anymore. Well, this is an interesting thing. I get a lot of tweets from Travis now. Travis is kind of based. He's responding to this video. He said, "Revoke citizenship, deport them all." Here it is. Nearly half of all Islamic immigrants in the Minnesota found to have committed Ilhan Omar immigration fraud, marriage fraud, tax fraud, loan fraud, bribery, forgery, perjury, bigamy, and incest during a recent sweep by the Department of Homeland Security. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph B. Edlow said, "Since September 19th, officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as a part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America."
September 19th, officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies.
So mass deportations of all of these people you investigated when? Because it's nice to know that all of this bad shit is going on, but you're going to deport them, right?
Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens, and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases. Some of the other troubling cases that our officers found. In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests. He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin.
Thank God. That's one, though. Where the rest?
An individual admitted to obtaining a fake death certificate in Kenya for just $100.
What?
To prove he was no longer married. In reality, his wife is alive, living here in Minneapolis, and is the mother of 5 of his children. And incidentally, he has another wife living in Sweden with whom he has an additional 3 children.
So he's defrauding both our government and the Swedish government? That's crazy! That's crazy, man!
In another case, an alien entered the United States without inspection in 2023, was released by Border Patrol. The alien married a U.S. citizen while in removal proceedings and was interviewed at the Minneapolis-St. Paul.
That's really depressing that there are likely people just willing to marry illegals in the middle of like deportation proceedings in order to keep them in the country. Like, I do not doubt that those people exist and offer their services.
USCIS field office just last week, where both he and his American spouse stated under oath that their marriage was legitimate. The USCIS officers conducting the interview were suspicious. The site visits were authorized the same day. The American spouse ultimately that afternoon admitted the marriage was fraudulent and entered into solely for immigration purposes and withdrew her petition for that alien.
I wonder what got her to fold. I wonder what specifically got her to fold. Is it maybe because since she's an actual American citizen, the law actually applies to her and she would face repercussions for her actions? Maybe, potentially.
This type of same-day action for interview, from interview to site visit, has really never happened before. And I am incredibly impressed and thankful to the diligent work of the agents who made that happen for the first time, but not for the last time. And finally, I wanted to note, in one case, an alien engaged in marriage fraud by taking advantage of an elderly U.S. citizen spouse, including threats and severe neglect. The American spouse was able to divorce the alien with the help of her family and caregivers.
That's fucking
but the family
crazy.
Still lives in fear of retaliation from the alien over the failed marriage fraud scam.
I wonder if this was the case of like a bleeding heart who had regret, or if they were actually like just giga scammed. Very unholy abuse of marriage. I feel like that's been going on for decades, illegal immigrants aside, you know?
These are not victimless crimes. Every case of fraud we uncover damages our national security, undermines the integrity of our immigration system, and as I just gave you an example, has real consequences. I want the American people to know that we are declaring war on immigration fraud. We will continue to pursue those who seek to abuse our immigration system using every tool at our disposal. This operation, Twin Shield, is just the first phase of what we are looking at.
I hope he's right about this, because again, I am tired of just lip service and then nothing happening. I want to hear a list of all of the deportations as a result of this practice in Minnesota.
The critical information gathered, the fraud patterns uncovered, will help us to combat fraud at the next level. We now begin the process of analyzing, cross-checking, reviewing cases using these results. These investigations will help us determine the next steps in many cases. We will be looking at grants of immigration benefits already given. We will be looking at other patterns, and we will be reopening, re-examining benefits to determine whether rescission, revocation is appropriate in any of these cases. Additionally, I would say right now that if you seek to commit immigration fraud in this country, you will find yourself meeting with our officers at USCIS.
Okay, so when is Ilhan Omar gonna get deported? Like, we've known about her immigration marriage fraud for like years. Her position in Congress not only shouldn't protect her, but it should be an additional reason to get her out, because she committed fraud and then somehow got elected to a high seat of power in our country.
You will meet officers within our federal partners at ICE, CBP, FBI, DEA, whoever is working with us. And you will find yourself not only without benefits, but you will find yourself prosecuted.
Why are immigrants getting benefits in the first place? Like, not for nothing, but like, I mean, you came here, right? That would be the benefit, right? I'm a little confused about that.
We will continue to tirelessly work with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota, as well as in every other jurisdiction, to make sure that these cases are treated as they should be, and that aliens, attorneys, preparers, others who engage in immigration fraud are properly punished.
Again, I love what he's saying. I like hearing it. I'm glad that there was an investigation. And he did say that, you know, multiple people were already in the process of being deported. That's cool, thumbs up. But you said like near 50% rate of fraud. So that's a lot of deportations. We gotta hasten some shit up here, all right?